Hi everybody. So I'm going to spend some time today talking about what it's like to be a homebrewer, how you can become a homebrewer, as in a retro game homebrewer, not as in a beer homebrewer. There is a difference. I've been homebrewing video games. Well, let's break this distinction down. There's homebrewing in that you write a game and you release it, give it to your friends and they play it, you post it online somewhere and they play it, and that's your basic generic homebrewer. They're just doing it for the love of coding, which is something I have done my whole life. I've loved coding. And then there's homebrewers who actually want to try to make some money at it. Back in a little backstory, back in 2021, I moved into an office. I used to have a home office. My daughter was born. My home office became my daughter's bedroom, so I needed a place. And I worked out of the home, so I got a home office. Or not a home office, I got an office, an actual real office, and I moved into it. And due to the type of work I do, I have a lot of free time in between projects that I work on. So I started tinkering around in coding. I've been coding for about 6 years on the Coleco Atom and coding for over 40 years on a Z80 processor. 30 years? 30 years on a Z80 processor. And so when I started in the office, I decided, I want to write a game for the ColecoVision. And I set myself a goal. I want to actually try to turn my passion, my desire to code, into something that will pay the office's rent. That way nothing's coming out of my salary that I'm making doing my other stuff. So my first game came out in August of... I started in August. It was released at the end of September of 2021. Crazy Climber Redux, which was Crazy Climber, if you're familiar with that. That's the arcade game where the guy's climbing the building and you got to get to the top and things get in front of you. It was never released on the ColecoVision, so I made a ColecoVision version of it, and it went over very, very well. And by very, very well, I mean I did a Kickstarter where I hoped to raise $3,000. I raised a little almost $13,000 on it, so it did very well. And at that point, I realized, there's something here. Yeah, I'm not going to get rich. I'm not going to make a ton of money, but there's something here. There's something that pays for itself, pays for my passion of coding, and at the same time makes enough money to make it worth my time to do it. So I followed up Crazy Climber with Turmoil 2021, which was a remake, a reimagining of the original Turmoil game on the Atari 2600. Then I followed that up with Arcadium, which was a completely 100% concept game in my head, and I moved on from there. I've done 14, 15 games in the past 5 years, maybe more, maybe less. That's published. Unpublished games, probably another dozen more that are sitting on my computer in various states of design. So after I got the first couple games up, I realized, there is something here. I can make money doing this. So I started 8-Bit Millie Games, which is my company to release homebrew games on that I wrote, and then I branched out into publishing other people's games. So now here we are. We're almost 6 years finished, or 5 years finished on 8-Bit Millie Games. Going to start in a 6th year this September, and things are going very well with it. So I've had a number of people ask me about homebrewing. How do you get started in it? Getting started in it depends on what you do. I mean, if you're starting from day one, if you have zero coding experience and you want to learn how to code, don't learn how to code for a game that's 40 years old. Don't waste your time unless you got plenty of time to waste and you don't care. If you want to code something and you want people to play it, you want a mass market, not a niche market, and the retro market is a niche of a niche. I mean, if the market is 1 foot, the retro market is 1/4. Well, the retro market is 1/4, and the homebrew market of the retro market might be 64th. It's very, very small. So if you want to code games that you want other people to write, lean into writing the games that run on the iPhone, on the Android, run Steam, or any of the other online services using modern hardware. You can still write retro-based games that way, but at least you got a market out there. You're not going to be writing games that 100 people are going to play. You're going to write a game that a couple thousand will play. You may or may not make money on it because there are millions, if not billions, of games you're up against, but it's a bigger market. But let's just say you want to get into the homebrew market. You want to get into the homebrew scene. And I could sit here and tell you, okay, you need TSM to compile for using a Z80. You need blah, blah, blah for a 6502. You need to learn how to code this. You need to understand this game system. I could tell you that all day long, but there's plenty of places online, on YouTube, on their websites and stuff like that tell you how to code or give you details on how to code specific systems. So I don't want to do that. Other people can do that, and they probably can do it a lot better than me. What I want to give you is the information they really don't tell you out there. The information I had to figure out over the last 5 years. How to actually do it. How do you make the game? The hardware scenes. Not the coding. The coding, anybody can teach you the coding. The hard part, the part behind it. How do you make the game? So I mean, let's just take this game flow. I mean, like, one of the questions I had here is, what is my workflow like? How do I work day to day? All right, my day is very open. I do whatever I really feel like. If some days I feel like coding, some days I don't. Some days I'll spend a whole week and not touch a game, and other days I'll spend 8 hours a day, 5 days straight working on the game. Depends on how I feel, which is probably a good and a bad thing. I mean, again, it's a passion project. And if I don't have the passion, I don't do the project. Sip the coffee first. Oh, and if you ever notice in videos, I have weird cups. I go to the thrift stores and I look for weird coffee cups. I like Super Dad. That's a cute one. Goes with Super Mario up here. So what's my workflow like? Let's say I'm writing a game. Okay, so I sit down and I code my game. I write it in a Z80 process, or I use VS Codium, which is Microsoft Visual Code, but VS Codium is the open source one that runs on Linux, because I like using Linux. Don't ask me why, because I go off on that tangent, and I'll be why everybody hates Windows video, and I don't want to do that. So I use VS Codium to code my games, then I compile it using TSM. TSM is a DOS-based compiler. Why do I use that? Because I've been using it for 15 years. So once you get set in your ways, you get kind of stuck in them. And I've gotten so many libraries and routines written in that style of coding that I don't want to start over from scratch. So that's what I use. So I'll write my game in using VS Codium. I'll compile it with using TSM. And then I use ColecoVision, which is a awesome ColecoVision emulator to test the game. Once I got a game that's workable, I know it works, the game I like. It may not be finished, but it's the game I like. Once I got the game that I like working, I'll take and I'll use my EPROM burner, and I won't give details on which one's them. If anybody's interested, I'll give details later. I'll take my EPROM burner, I'll burn an EPROM, I'll stick it on a cartridge, and I'll test it on a ColecoVision hardware just to make sure things are working exactly the way they expect to, because emulators are supposedly perfect, but they're not always perfect. Case in point, Way of the Dung, 2 years ago. 2 years ago? Yes, 2 years ago, sorry. 2 years ago, Way of the Dung came out. Beautiful game. Awesome. Ran great in the emulator. Drop it on the CV, didn't work. Why? We don't know. And as in I asked other coders too to look at it, we couldn't figure out why it don't work right on the ColecoVision. Maybe it's a hardware issue, a timing issue, I don't know, but it worked great in the emulator, not on the hardware. So I had to basically change the whole game to work on the hardware. So before I get too deep in, I just test my process on the real hardware, make sure it works. Then I'll go back to coding. So finally finished the game. Game's finally done. How do I make the game? This is the part where, when I first did Crazy Climate Redux, I asked around, I got a game that I'm producing, I need to produce real cartridges, and I need PCBs and stuff like that. How do I go about that? And everybody said, there's this guy in Germany who sells PCBs and ROM EPROMs. You can buy them from him, and then you can just program them yourself and then put them in ColecoVision cartridges. So that's what I did. I bought it from him directly. I paid, I think it was almost $10 a PCB in ROM. And then I would take ColecoVision shell cartridges, which are old Donkey Kongs and old games, gut them, clean them up, put the new PCBs that I made in there, close them up, label them. That was that. That gave me a price of like $15 just for counting the label Now we're getting up to like $17. All in all, it worked out to almost $22 per game boxed at the time. And I wasn't even happy with the quality of it, but that's what it was costing me. So I'm kind of getting off the question here. This isn't my day-to-day anymore. Now I'm just giving you some details. So I'll just run down the history. I seem to work better like that instead of questions. I'll throw questions in later. So what I did is I had to say, okay, this doesn't leave much meat on the bone. Okay, yeah, it cost me $25 to make the game, and I sell the game for $50. I'm making a $25 profit. That's not too bad until you consider the number of games I've made. If I only sell 50 games at a $25 profit, that's what? I don't have a calculator in front of me. 4,000, 1,250, something like that. That's how much profit I make, which is not really profit, because seriously, I need to be paid for my time that I code, because I could be coding stuff that makes money, like a real job. So there's not a lot of meat left on the bone. And if I decide that the game's not selling at 50 and I had to drop it down to 40 or 30, again, my price is gone. And if, heaven forbid, I get a game like I did with my second game, Turmoil 2022. Sorry, this is itching my throat. With Turmoil 2022, after I had shipped out 52 games, I discovered that I had made a bug in the game and it was glitching it. Now, I could have just said, hey, learning experience. But I didn't. Instead, I remade the 49 games I'd shipped out and shipped them again. So obviously, zero profit on that game. I mean, eventually the game sold more, and it gets to the point like with CCR, over 350, 400 copies of it so far I've sold. Turmoil, I've sold 150 to 200 copies. So the games do make the money back. But what I needed to do is I needed to lower my pricing. So I was talking with people online, and I found a guy in Ohio who could create me a PCB, because I did not know how to make PCBs, and I'm just learning how to look at them versus making them. Maybe someday I'll learn. I mean, I have a limited amount of time to learn new things, so I really don't need to learn new things. So he designed me the PCBs for it. I searched around. At first, I tried to buy the EPROMs, which are 27C256 chips, if you're interested. I searched around. DigiKey didn't carry them. Mouser didn't carry them. I found some on eBay, but they weren't that good. And I finally found them in China and AliExpress. Everybody screams, don't buy from AliExpress. They're going to be fakes, knockoffs. They scrape them off. I've never had that issue, and I bought thousands of chips from them and never had an issue of them being fakes. Maybe I'm not trying to buy a Commodore SID chip from there. I'm just buying standard EPROMs. So I started buying from AliExpress, and just as a side note on the AliExpress, and yeah, I do have ADHD, so I will go off on tangents. On a side note on AliExpress, when you purchase, hang on a second. Okay, I just had this thought. Did I start recording? Yes, I did. I did start recording. So when you buy EPROMs from AliExpress, the vast majority of the EPROMs you're buying are not going to be brand new in box. They're either going to be pulls, which means they were pulled out of old systems. Most of the time, there is no solder. It's not like they're getting pulled off of boards and they got solder all over them. I've had a couple like that, but the vast majority of them, they've either been pulled out of systems or they're rejects. And the reason they're rejects is because every EPROM, or every newer EPROM that was made then, has an ID on it, and the first thing the EPROM burner does is check the ID to make sure that it is the EPROM that it thinks it's going to program. And a lot of those, the ID fails, and it thinks the EPROM's bad. EPROM's not bad. You go to program it, you just turn off check ID, program's no issue. So I started buying them from AliExpress, and I got my cost per, but back to the PCBs. I sent my PCBs to JLC PCB, which is in Hong Kong. I could have went PCB Way, just like everybody on YouTube does, but you know what? PCB Way, I tried to work through them, and they are very, very slow. Others may think they're fast, but they're very slow. You give them your Gerber, you're looking at a day. 2 days before they even say, yeah, that's good, we can do it. How many do you want? No. And then, if you try to order them, you can't. Well, and the other thing with PCB Way, which really ticked me off, and it ticked me off just recently too, because I tried again thinking they maybe changed it. You upload your file to them and you want to get a price. How much is this going to cost me? You don't get a price until they review the whole thing. No. JLC PCB, very big company out of Hong Kong. They do PCBs, they do 3D printing, they do all kinds of stuff out of it. Uploaded my Gerbers to them, told them how many I wanted, print, paid. I get them in 2.5, 3 weeks at the most. So we got the PCBs taken care of. For the ColecoVisions, it requires the EPROM, which I'm getting now from AliExpress, and it requires the 74LS21 chip, which I do buy from DigiKey because they have tons of them and they're cheap. Though I did learn I can get them from AliExpress too. And a capacitor, which I just buy them on Amazon. So now I'm buying my stuff, and all my parts are coming in for the PCB boards and stuff, and I've got my cost down from $10 down to about $2.50. So that's $7.50 I just made back in it. Now I need the shells. I was still doing the recycling of the shells for a while, and I just realized, paying $2 to $5 per game and then pulling them apart, I wasn't happy with that, and I kind of felt bad about, there may be millions of copies of Donkey Kong out there, but I still felt bad about it. So I went on JLC PCB, and I found that they did 3D printing, so I uploaded a 3D design that I made using Tinkercad online. Uploaded 3D design, sent it to me. So now I'm getting my shells for $4 a piece, and that worked really good. So now I've got my game design and build down to a completed game cartridge, down to $6.50 to $7 each. Then what I was doing is I was having labels printed from, can't remember what the name of the company was because I don't use them anymore, having the labels printed, and the labels were running like $1 a label. And then I would need boxes, and this is the hard part, boxes are. Getting an actual box printed is expensive. I finally found last year, with a suggestion from Tony Cruz from Electric Adventure, a company in Australia, that I could get boxes printed for about $2 a piece. Nice, pretty, glossy boxes. That's not a bad price. But you have to order in quantities of 100 or more, which I guess is okay, but what I've learned is when producing games, your sales quantity go from 30 to 100. Really good selling game might go over 100. Bad selling game go 30. And if you're buying 100 of these, you got $2 a box. Let's throw down here. Now you're down to $8.50, $9 for that thing. Well, I've got the label $10 for that thing. Then you got a manual. I was getting the manuals printed online, or printed online too. That was another $2. So I'm up to $12 it. Then there's all the assembly. You got to slap some time in there. You got to charge yourself. So I'd throw $5 on that. Now it's up to $17. Still better than the $20, but still not perfect. So once I realized how the cartridges are being made over there with the resin printers, I bought a resin printer of my own for $100 some and started making my own, and that worked good. So I bought a second, I bought a third, I bought a fourth. I eventually had 5 resin printers at one point, and that was really, I got my cartridges down to $1.25 a cartridge for the shell. So you see my prices are going. I went and bought a high quality color printer and a high quality black and white laser printer. Both of them are lasers. And now I'm printing the manuals in-house. So I got my cost for manuals down to basically nothing. So now I finally got my cost per game complete, other than the box still, down to about $6. Box is still running me $2, $2.50. Then I discovered another way of doing it. Okay, well, instead of the full box, why didn't I do a sleeve? A sleeve is, it's a paper sleeve on the outside of a box. I bought pre-made boxes that they're shipping boxes, but they are very good-looking shipping boxes, and they're basically the same size as a video game box. So that, and then I had a sleeves printed locally, and I got my box cost down to about $3, $2 or $3 a box. So it's close to the same. But now the issue here is I'm not buying 100 boxes at a time anymore. I'm buying 100 sleeves, but the boxes I can use on anything. The sleeves are only for that game. And again, the manuals, I'm not buying the manuals 100 of them at a time. I'm making them on the fly as needed. Now I needed to get my other prices down. My labels were still killing me. Yeah, it may seem cheap, but if you're paying $100 for labels and you're only selling 30 games and you got 70 labels left, that's a waste of money. But you can't go, if you go much lower in quantity, you're not going to be able to buy them cheap enough. So I thought about it. I said, well, can I use my color printer to print labels? No, it just doesn't look right. Color laser printer, yeah, it prints good, but it doesn't print good. So I started searching around and I found a perfect solution. Walmart. Walmart has a photo processing system. I go into Photoshop and I lay my labels up, which means two of them, on a 6x4. I upload them to Walmart and I have them print me 4x6 prints. Matte photo paper, 16 cents a piece. Divided by 2, 8 cents a label. Done in an hour. I go pick them up. And the quality is much better than any label you could ever get. It's not a thin sheet of plastic, or not a thin sheet of paper with plastic coating. This is thick photo quality paper. Very smooth, very nice matte feeling. It looks very good. I cut them on my guillotine, which is one of those big little chopper things. Then I use a rounding corner to round off the corners. Spray the back with contact glue and done. Perfect label every time. So now I got my labels down to 8 cents a piece. I got my manuals down to whatever it costs for paper, basically, because the printing is almost nothing. And other incidental shrink wrapping and foam packaging and stuff like that. I finally get my game cost down to between $5 and $6 for a finished full box. Now's when I can play with the idea of, okay, I don't need to sell games for $50 a piece. Some of them may want games for $50 a piece, but maybe I should sell them for less. That's where the budget packs came in. The budget pack was like an awesome idea I had. You can buy these plastic game protector sleeves. They're basically plastic boxes, see-through boxes. One game fits in there perfectly fine. You buy them, I get them online from a person on eBay who's in Massachusetts. I get them for, I think, like 50 cents a piece. And they're very strong. They're meant to protect cartridges. I take one of them, I put the game inside of it. Now I take my concept for the labels and I do the same thing for the outside wraparound sleeve. I print up a front and a back. Using Photoshop, I design up the front and the back. Run it through the Walmart printing company, or photo processing. Trim them, glue them, put them together. Now I have budget pack games. No more boxes. No more manuals. The manuals are online. You need a manual, you download it online free of charge. Print it if you want it, read it if you don't. Budget pack games, I can cut the price down. Now the budget pack games run anywhere from $20 to $30 a piece. I've lowered the price down, but yet my profit margin is still there. And I've now gotten it to the point where I don't make 100 of them and sit them here and stare at them and hope that they sell. I make them as they're ordered. So it's basically print on demand for games. So yeah, what does my workday flow look like? Man, that's it. If I'm not coding, I'm fulfilling orders in that way. So there you go. There's a not so quick, in-depth look at what it's like to be a retro game homebrewer. Have any questions? Leave them in the comments or contact me directly. We as in 8-Bit Millie Games, see that's right there. See the sign over my head? We are always, and if you're wondering who that girl is standing behind me, that's Candy No Neck. Why is she Candy No Neck? Because I cut her head off, and she has no neck, because I put a TV on her for a show, a convention, and now her head's sitting on like a little pole about that high. That's why she has so much hair, and she still has no neck. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, send me any emails. If you are a home brewer or a game designer and you'd like to have your game published, right now we are publishing games for the ColecoVision and the Atari 2600. We are moving into the Atari 7800. We are looking at the Odyssey 2, a very, very, very small market, but it's a fun little machine. We want to do Intellivision. We just don't have the right game to do Intellivision yet. But if you're interested in that, go over to our website, 8bitmillygames.com. Click on the info button, and there's a page there on how to become a game developer. If you have a retro game store or sell retro games, you can become a wholesaler or even a drop shipper. Look on our website. Same thing. Click on the info button and read the information there. Have a great day.